A True Crime Story, Part 1. The Happiest Day. On August 7, 2010, 6-year-old Emma Chen disappeared from Wonderland Amusement Park in Cedar Falls, Iowa, during her birthday celebration. She was last seen at 3:42 p.m., standing in line for the carousel with her older brother. The carousel was 20 feet away. There were 17 other people in line. When the carousel stopped and the gates opened, Emma was gone. No one saw her leave. No one heard her cry out. No witnesses came forward. It would take 6 years to discover what happened. And when the truth finally emerged, it would reveal something far more sinister than a simple abduction. Because Emma Chen didn't just vanish from Wonderland that day. She was taken by someone who had been planning it for months. Someone who knew exactly when she would be there, and someone who had help from inside the park itself. How does a child disappear from a crowded amusement park in the middle of the afternoon? How does a girl evaporate from a line of people waiting for a ride while her brother stands 3 feet away? And why did it take 6 years and 3 more missing children before anyone realized that Wonderland Amusement Park was hunting ground for a predator who wore an employee uniform and a smile? Cedar Falls, Iowa sits along the Cedar River in the northeastern part of the state, a city of 40,000 people known for its university, its Victorian architecture, and Wonderland Amusement Park, a family-owned attraction that had been operating since 1952. In 2010, Wonderland was considered a wholesome, safe alternative to the massive corporate theme parks, a place where parents could bring their children without worrying about crowds, high prices, or danger. The park featured classic rides, a wooden roller coaster that had been thrilling visitors for 60 years, a Ferris wheel with a view of the river, bumper cars, a funhouse with mirrors and slides, and the crown jewel, a magnificent carousel with hand-carved horses that had been imported from Germany in 1955. The carousel was housed in a Victorian pavilion painted in cheerful colors, its calliope music audible from anywhere in the park. The Chen family had lived in Cedar Falls for 8 years. Michael Chen, 39 years old, was an engineering professor at the University of Northern Iowa. His wife, Sarah, 37, was a pediatrician at the local hospital. They had 2 children, Daniel, 9 years old, serious and protective of his younger sister, and Emma, who was turning 6 on August 7th. Emma was a bright, energetic child, with straight black hair cut in a bob with bangs, dark brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity, and a smile that could light up a room. She loved princesses, stuffed animals, drawing pictures, and the color pink. She was small for her age, barely 40 pounds, with a high voice and a tendency to skip instead of walk when she was excited. For her 6th birthday, Emma had asked for only one thing: a day at Wonderland. She had been to the park twice before and had become obsessed with the carousel, insisting that the white horse with the pink saddle was hers and refusing to ride any other one. Sarah and Michael had agreed, planning a small birthday party at the park with Emma's 2 best friends from kindergarten, to their families, and Emma's grandparents. August 7th, 2010 was a perfect summer day. Sunny, 80 degrees, a slight breeze carrying the smell of popcorn and cotton candy through the park. The Chen party arrived at Wonderland at 11 a.m. when the park opened. Emma wore her favorite outfit, a pink t-shirt with a sparkly unicorn on it, denim shorts with white flowers embroidered on the pockets, and light-up sneakers that flashed pink and purple when she walked. She carried a small pink backpack shaped like a bunny. The group spent the morning riding attractions, eating hot dogs and ice cream, playing carnival games. Emma's grandmother won her a large stuffed bear at the ring toss, which Emma named Birthday Bear, and insisted on carrying everywhere. The children laughed, The adults relaxed, so everyone felt safe in the cheerful atmosphere of Wonderland. At 2:30 p.m., they gathered at one of the park's picnic pavilions for birthday cake. Chocolate with pink frosting and plastic princess figurines on top. Emma blew out 6 candles while everyone sang. She was radiant with happiness, frosting on her nose, giggling as her friends handed her small presents wrapped in bright paper. After cake, the group split up. The adults wanted to sit and digest lunch while the children rode more attractions. It was decided that Daniel, who was 9 and responsible, would take Emma and her 2 friends, also 6 years old, to ride the carousel one more time before they left. The parents would stay at the pavilion, which had a clear view of the carousel pavilion about 200 feet away. "Stay together," Sarah reminded Daniel. "Watch your sister." "I will, Mom," Daniel said with the exasperation of a child who had heard this instruction 1,000 times. "And Emma, you listen to your brother. Don't run off." "I won't!" Emma grabbed Daniel's hand, practically vibrating with excitement. "Come on, I want to ride the pink horse." The 4 children, Daniel, Emma, and her 2 friends, Chloe and Madison, walked across the park toward the carousel. It was 3:35 p.m. The park was moderately crowded, typical for a Saturday afternoon in August. Families strolled along the pathways, children darted between attractions, teenagers clustered near the roller coaster. The carousel was running, calliope music playing, painted horses rising and falling as it turned. A line of about 20 people waited behind a rope barrier for the current ride to finish. So Daniel led the 3 younger girls to the end of the line. Emma bounced excitedly, still clutching Birthday Bear. "I'm going to ride the pink horse. The pink horse is the best horse." "We know, Emma," Daniel said patiently. "You always ride the pink horse." The carousel slowed, its music winding down. The ride operator, a young man in a red Wonderland uniform shirt, opened the gate and let the previous riders exit. Then he lifted the rope barrier and began allowing the waiting riders to enter. "Stay close," Daniel told the girls as they moved forward with the line. What happened in the next 7 minutes would be reconstructed later through witness statements, security footage, and forensic timeline analysis. But at the time, it seemed to happen in an instant. The line moved forward. Daniel kept the 3 6-year-olds in front of him, guiding them toward the carousel platform. Emma was focused entirely on the white horse with the pink saddle, craning her neck to make sure no one else took it. Chloe, one of Emma's friends, dropped her small purse. She bent down to pick it up, and Madison, the other friend, stopped to help her. Daniel paused with them, making sure they had everything. He looked ahead to check on Emma. She was gone. At first, he thought she had already gotten on the carousel. He hurried forward with Chloe and Madison, scanning the painted horses for Emma's pink shirt. She wasn't there. "Emma?" he called, looking around the carousel platform. No response. The ride operator was checking seatbelts, about to start the carousel. "Excuse me," Daniel said urgently. "Did you see a little girl in pink? My sister?" The operator, a young man named Travis Holbrook, shook his head. "Sorry, kid. I've been checking seats. Try the line?" But Emma wasn't in the line either. Daniel looked back at the rope barrier where they had been standing moments before. She wasn't there. A cold knot of fear formed in Daniel's stomach. "Emma!" he called louder. People turned to look at him. Chloe and Madison, sensing something wrong, started to look worried. "Where's Emma?" Madison asked. "I don't know," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "She was right here." He left the carousel platform and ran back toward the picnic pavilion, searching frantically. Maybe Emma had run back to their parents. Maybe she had seen something and wandered off. But even as he thought it, he knew Emma wouldn't do that. She wanted to ride the carousel more than anything. She wouldn't just leave. At the pavilion, Sarah looked up and immediately knew something was wrong from Daniel's face. "Where's Emma?" she asked, standing up. I don't know. She was in line with us and then she was gone." For a moment, no one moved. Then Sarah and Michael were running toward the carousel, asking everyone they passed, "Have you seen a little girl? 6 years old? Pink shirt? Black hair?" The park's security was notified at 3:47 p.m., 5 minutes after Emma disappeared. By 3:50, the park went into lockdown protocol. All exits closed. All guests asked to remain in place. Staff mobilized to search. Wonderland had a comprehensive security system. The park was divided into zones, each covered by multiple cameras. Within 30 minutes, Security Director Paul Brennan was reviewing footage from cameras near the carousel. What the cameras showed was both helpful and deeply disturbing. At 3:39 p.m., Emma Chen could be seen in line for the carousel, holding Birthday Bear, standing in front of her brother. At 3:40 p.m., Chloe dropped her purse and the girls stopped to help. At 3:41 p.m., Emma took 2 steps forward, still in line, still visible. At 3:42 p.m., a park employee in a red Wonderland uniform and baseball cap walked past the line, carrying a clipboard. The employee appeared to say something to Emma. Emma looked up, nodded, and took the employee's hand. Together, they walked away from the carousel, heading toward the employee area behind the food court. At 3:43 p.m., they disappeared from view of that camera. The next camera, which should have captured them entering the employee corridor, showed nothing. They had vanished somewhere in a blind spot between camera zones. The employee in the video could not be identified. The baseball cap obscured most of the face, the body language was neutral, the uniform was standard issue. It could have been male or female, young or old. The footage was grainy, typical of 2010 surveillance technology. But one thing was clear. Emma had gone willingly with someone dressed as a Wonderland employee, and that person had known exactly where the camera blind spots were. By 4 p.m., Cedar Falls police had arrived. By 4:30, the FBI had been notified. By 5 o'clock, all 600 people in the park had been interviewed and allowed to leave after providing contact information. The park remained closed for investigation. Every Wonderland employee, 137 total, was accounted for and interviewed. So every red uniform shirt was collected and examined. Every person who had access to employee areas was questioned. No one matched the person in the video. No one admitted to approaching Emma. No one could explain who the employee in the footage was. The search expanded beyond the park. K-9 units tracked Emma's scent from the carousel to the employee corridor, then to a service exit at the back of the park. Outside the exit was a loading area where delivery trucks parked. The trail ended there. Someone had taken Emma Chen out of Wonderland through a service exit that should have been locked and monitored. Someone who knew the park layout, knew the camera positions, knew exactly how to move through the space without being fully captured on video. And that someone had driven away with a 6-year-old girl who was supposed to be celebrating her birthday. Part 2. The investigation. The first 48 hours after Emma's disappearance were a whirlwind of activity. FBI agents flooded Cedar Falls, setting up a command post in the Wonderland Administrative Building. Every frame of security footage was analyzed. Every employee was re-interviewed. Every vehicle that had been near the park that day was tracked down. The media descended immediately. A 6-year-old girl vanishing from an amusement park on her birthday was a story that captured national attention. Emma's smiling face, taken from a photo earlier that day, frosting on her nose, holding birthday bear, appeared on every news channel. Amber Alert went out across Iowa and neighboring states. Billboards displayed Emma's picture. Wonderland Amusement Park, for 60 years a symbol of wholesome family fun, became synonymous with tragedy and fear. Emma Chen appeared at press conferences, her face hollow with grief, begging whoever had taken her daughter to bring her home. Michael stood beside her, silent, his jaw clenched, his hands shaking. Daniel blamed himself, had nightmares every night about the moment he looked away. The investigation revealed disturbing patterns. First, the employee who took Emma was not a Wonderland staff member. Every employee had been accounted for, their movements tracked through time cards, witness statements, and their own testimony. The person in the video was an imposter wearing a stolen or replica uniform. Second, the service exit Emma was taken through had been unlocked from the inside that day. The lock mechanism had been deliberately disabled, probably hours before Emma disappeared. This suggested planning, preparation, inside knowledge. Third, Emma was not the first child to disappear from Wonderland. This revelation came from FBI analyst Grace Morrison, who was running Emma's case through national databases. She discovered 3 other cases: children who had vanished from amusement parks or family entertainment venues over the past 6 years, all in the Midwest, all under similar circumstances. July 2004. 7-year-old Marcus Webb disappeared from County Fair in Des Moines, Iowa. Last seen near the Ferris wheel. Never found. June 2006. 5-year-old Sophia Martinez vanished from Adventureland in Omaha, Nebraska. Last seen at a carnival game booth. Never found. Just September 2008. 6-year-old Tyler Brooks disappeared from State Fair in Madison, Wisconsin. Last seen in a crowded Midway. Never found. In each case, witnesses reported seeing the child with an adult they didn't recognize, but descriptions were vague. In each case, security footage showed gaps, moments where the child should have been visible, but wasn't. In each case, the trail went cold almost immediately. The FBI created a task force specifically for these cases, operating under the theory that they were dealing with a serial child abductor who targeted amusement venues across the Midwest. Someone who understood security systems, who could blend into crowds, who planned meticulously. Someone who had never made a mistake, until now. Because Emma Chen's case had one element the others didn't. Clear footage of the abductor, even if their face wasn't visible. The FBI brought in specialists to analyze every detail: the gait, the body proportions, the way the person held the clipboard, the specific style of the uniform. One detail stood out. The uniform shirt had a small stain near the left pocket, barely visible but there if you looked closely. It was not standard for Wonderland employees. It suggested this was a personal uniform, worn multiple times, not freshly issued. The FBI began investigating current and former Wonderland employees, looking for anyone who had left the company but might still have uniforms. They found 12 people who fit that profile. One name kept appearing in the investigation: Derek Samuels. Derek Samuels, 34 years old, had worked at Wonderland as a maintenance supervisor from 2002 to 2009. He had been fired after an incident involving inappropriate comments made to a teenage employee. Not illegal, not sexual in nature, just creepy. The kind of behavior that made people uncomfortable. After leaving Wonderland, Samuels had moved frequently, working odd jobs, janitorial work, security guard positions, delivery driving. He had no criminal record, no red flags that would prevent employment, but he left a trail of former employers who remembered him as weird, antisocial, too interested in watching people. When FBI agents went to Samuels's last known address, an apartment in Waterloo, Iowa, 30 minutes from Cedar Falls, they found he had moved out 3 weeks before Emma disappeared. No forwarding address. His landlord remembered him as quiet, kept strange hours, always paid rent in cash. The apartment had been cleaned thoroughly before he left, but forensic teams found something interesting in the closet. Fibers consistent with Wonderland uniform shirts. Derek Samuels became the primary suspect. A nationwide manhunt began. But weeks passed with no sign of him. No credit card use, no employment records, no rental agreements. He had vanished as completely as the children. By September 2010, a month after Emma's disappearance, the investigation had stalled. Despite massive publicity, despite thousands of tips called in, despite FBI resources and local law enforcement working around the clock, there was no significant progress. Emma Chen stopped sleeping. She spent every night online, searching missing children databases, reading about other cases, looking for any clue that might lead to Emma. Michael threw himself into work, teaching classes like a robot, unable to process the grief that was consuming his family. Daniel started having panic attacks at school. He couldn't be in crowded places without hyperventilating, convinced he would lose someone again if he looked away for even a second. Wonderland Amusement Park tried to reopen in September but faced protests from parents' groups. Attendance plummeted. By October, the park closed permanently, unable to survive the association with tragedy. 60 years of history ended because of one terrible day. The investigation continued, but as months turned to years, hope faded. Emma Chen joined the statistics. One of the approximately 800,000 children reported missing in the United States each year, one of the far smaller number who are never found. By 2012, 2 years after Emma's disappearance, the FBI officially suspended active investigation, though the case remained open. Derek Samuels was still wanted for questioning, still considered a person of interest, but the trail had gone completely cold. Emma Chen divorced Michael in 2013. The grief was too much, the blame too heavy. Michael had been the one who suggested the birthday party at Wonderland. Sarah had been the one who let Daniel take Emma to the carousel. They couldn't look at each other without seeing their failure. Daniel developed severe anxiety and depression. By age 14, he was in intensive therapy, medicated, struggling to function. The guilt of losing his sister, of looking away for 10 seconds, had destroyed his childhood as thoroughly as Emma's abduction had ended hers. The years passed. 2013, 2014, 2015. So Emma would be 11 now, then 12. Age progression images were released, showing what she might look like as she grew, but they seemed like pictures of a stranger. And then in June 2016, almost exactly 6 years after Emma disappeared, everything changed. Not because of new evidence in Emma's case, but because of a completely unrelated arrest 300 miles away. Part 3. The Break. On June 15, 2016, Michigan State Police arrested a 41-year-old man named Derek Samuels for breaking into a storage facility in Grand Rapids. He had been caught on camera forcing open a unit that didn't belong to him. It was a minor crime, the kind that might result in probation for a first-time offender. But when police ran his information through the system, every alarm went off. Derek Samuels. wanted for questioning in multiple child abduction cases. Last seen in Iowa in 2010. FBI agents arrived within hours. Samuels was transported to a federal facility and held without bail. The storage unit he had broken into was searched thoroughly. Inside, investigators found boxes of children's clothing, all carefully organized by size and type. Toys still in packaging. Coloring books and crayons. A child's pink backpack shaped like a bunny. Emma Chen's backpack. DNA testing confirmed it. The backpack that Emma had been carrying the day she disappeared was in Derek Samuels' storage unit, along with items that matched descriptions from the other missing children cases. But there was something else in the storage unit that was even more damning. DVDs. Dozens of them, carefully labeled with dates and locations. When FBI agents played the first DVD, they saw handheld camera footage of children at amusement parks. Hours and hours of footage. Children on rides, children eating ice cream, children laughing with their families. The camera focused particularly on young children, ages 4 to 8, lingering on their faces, their movements. It was surveillance footage. Derek Samuels had been stalking children at amusement parks for years, selecting targets, learning their patterns, waiting for the perfect moment. One DVD was labeled Wonderland, August 2010. The footage showed Emma Chen. Not the security camera view from the park, but personal footage shot by Samuels himself. He had been at Wonderland that day, had filmed the Chen family arriving, had followed Emma throughout the morning, had recorded her eating birthday cake. And at the end of the video, there was audio. Samuels' voice, speaking quietly. "She's perfect. Today is the day. The pink horse girl." The evidence was overwhelming. Samuels was charged with kidnapping, murder, though no bodies had been found, and multiple other federal crimes, but he refused to talk. Through his court-appointed lawyer, he maintained complete silence, invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. He would not confirm what had happened to Emma or any of the other children. He would not say if they were alive or dead. He would not reveal where they were. The FBI tried everything: plea deals, psychological pressure, appeals to conscience. Samuels sat in interrogation rooms, said nothing, and stared at walls with empty eyes. Forensic teams searched every property Samuels had ever rented, every storage unit he had used, every vehicle he had owned. They found more evidence, more children's belongings, more surveillance footage, more proof of obsession and planning. But they didn't find the children. Prosecutors prepared for trial, knowing they would have to try Samuels without bodies, without direct evidence of murder, relying on circumstantial evidence and the assumption that children missing for 6 years under these circumstances were deceased. And then, in October 2016, 4 months after Samuels' arrest, a woman named Patricia Henley walked into an FBI field office in Chicago and said 5 words that would crack the case wide open. "I know where they are." Part 4. The Truth. Patricia Henley was 58 years old, a former nurse, divorced, living alone in a suburb of Chicago. She had no criminal record, no apparent connection to Derek Samuels, and no obvious reason to be involved in his crimes. But she was involved. Deeply, terribly involved. Patricia Henley was Derek Samuels' sister, not by blood, but by marriage. Her ex-husband had been Samuels' half-brother. The relationship had ended badly in 2005, but Patricia and Derek had stayed in contact. He was, she said, the only family she had left after her parents died. For 11 years, Patricia Henley had been Derek Samuels' accomplice. and she was ready to confess everything. Her story was horrifying. Derek Samuels, she explained, had been obsessed with children since childhood. Not sexually, at least not primarily. His obsession was different, harder to define. He wanted to keep them, to preserve them, to stop them from growing up. He had this idea, Patricia said during her confession, her voice flat and emotionless. That childhood was being destroyed by modern society, that children were being ruined by technology, by media, by bad parenting. He thought he could save them by taking them somewhere pure, somewhere they could stay children forever. Patricia had helped because Derek promised to share his collection with her. She was lonely, bitter about her failed marriage, desperate for purpose. Derek offered her that purpose. Help him create a place where children could be happy, protected, kept safe from the world. What he actually created was a prison. In 2003, Derek purchased a property in rural Missouri, 40 acres of isolated farmland with a large barn and a farmhouse. He renovated the barn extensively, converting it into what he called the sanctuary. The sanctuary was a nightmare designed to look like a dream. Derek had built it to resemble a theme park attraction. Bright colors, painted murals of cartoon characters, carnival music playing constantly from speakers. Inside were 6 small rooms, each decorated like a child's bedroom, each with reinforced locks on the outside. This was where Derek kept the children he abducted. Marcus Webb, taken in 2004, had been the first. He was held in the sanctuary for 2 years before dying of untreated illness. Derek had no medical training and refused to take the children to doctors because it would expose his operation. Sophia Martinez, taken in 2006, had died within a year from complications of diabetes. Derek hadn't known she was diabetic, hadn't maintained her insulin, hadn't understood the warning signs as her condition deteriorated. Tyler Brooks, taken in 2008, had died in an attempted escape. Shown he had managed to pick the lock on his room, had run through the barn, had fallen from the loft, and broken his neck. Derek had buried all 3 children on the property, in unmarked graves beneath a grove of oak trees. But Emma Chen was different. Emma was still alive. When Patricia revealed this, that Emma had survived 6 years in captivity, the FBI mobilized immediately. A tactical team was dispatched to the Missouri property. Medical personnel stood by. Child psychologists prepared for what would be found. On October 12, 2016, federal agents raided the sanctuary. They found Emma Chen in a small room painted pink, decorated with princess stickers and stuffed animals. She was 12 years old now, though she looked younger, malnourished, small for her age, her hair long and unkempt. She was wearing clothing Derek had provided, a child's dress meant for a 6-year-old, far too small for her. When agents entered the room, Emma didn't scream. She didn't run. She looked at them with huge, empty eyes and asked in a small voice, "Is it time for carousel?" Derek had kept her locked in this room for 6 years. He visited daily, brought her food, talked to her about how she was safe here, how the outside world was dangerous, how she was lucky to be protected. He made her watch videos of amusement parks on loop, told her that someday, when she was good enough, he would take her to ride the carousel again. He had convinced her that this was normal, that this was what happened to children who turned 6. They went to live in special places where they could be children forever. Emma didn't know her parents had been looking for her. She didn't know 6 years had passed. Derek had told her it had only been a few months. She didn't even remember her own name. Derek called her Princess, and that was who she thought she was. The psychological damage was catastrophic. Emma was immediately hospitalized, treated for malnutrition, infections, and severe dental problems from years of inadequate care. Child psychologists began the long, delicate process of helping her understand reality, that she had been kidnapped, that her parents loved her and had never stopped searching, that the man who took her was not protecting her, but hurting her. Sarah Chen was notified that her daughter had been found alive. She collapsed, sobbing, unable to believe it was real. Michael drove from his home in Minnesota, where he had moved after the divorce, arriving at the hospital in Missouri at 2 a.m., demanding to see his daughter. But the reunion could not happen immediately. Emma needed psychological preparation. She didn't remember her parents. She was terrified of the outside world. She had been conditioned to believe that anyone other than Derek was dangerous. It took 3 weeks of careful therapy before Emma was ready to meet the strangers who claimed to be her family. The meeting happened in a controlled hospital setting, with psychologists present. Sarah and Michael walked into the room where Emma sat, small and fragile, clutching a stuffed animal. Sarah started crying immediately. Michael couldn't speak. Emma looked at them with polite confusion. "Hello," she said in the formal way Derek had taught her to greet adults. "Are you here to see the princess?" "Emma," Sarah whispered. "Baby, it's Mom. It's Mama." Emma tilted her head, processing. "Mama?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're your parents. We love you. We've been looking for you for so long." But Emma didn't remember. 6 years old when she was taken, 12 years old now. Her memories of her real life had been overlaid by Derek's constant indoctrination. She knew, intellectually, that these people were her biological parents. But emotionally, they were strangers. The road to recovery would be long and uncertain. Part 5. Justice and Aftermath. Derek Samuels and Patricia Henley both pleaded guilty in federal court. There would be no trial, no opportunity for them to explain or justify their actions. Samuels was sentenced to life in prison without parole on multiple counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of criminally negligent homicide for the deaths of the other children. Patricia Henley, who had cooperated with investigators and led them to Emma, received a lighter sentence, 30 years, eligible for parole after 20. It was controversial, but prosecutors argued that without her confession, Emma would never have been found. At the sentencing hearing, Sarah Chen gave a victim impact statement. "You stole 6 years of my daughter's life," she said, staring directly at Derek Samuels. "You stole her childhood, her innocence, her memories of her family. You turned her into someone who doesn't know who she is. Even though she's alive, even though we found her, you still killed the little girl she was. She's gone. And the Emma we knew is gone forever." Samuels showed no reaction. He sat motionless, expressionless, as he had throughout the entire legal process. Patricia Henley, however, broke down crying. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I thought we were helping them. I thought—" "You thought nothing," Sarah cut her off. "You did what you did because you're broken inside. And now my daughter is broken too." The bodies of Marcus Webb, Sophia Martinez, and Tyler Brooks were recovered from the Missouri property and returned to their families for burial. Their parents, who had spent years wondering, now had terrible certainty. Emma Chen spent the next year in intensive residential therapy at a facility specializing in severe trauma. She had to relearn everything: who she was, where she came from, how the world actually worked. The process was agonizing. Slowly, fragments of memory returned. She remembered her brother Daniel. She remembered birthday cake. She remembered something about a pink horse, though the details were fuzzy. But she couldn't remember feeling safe. That was the cruelest part. Derek had stolen her ability to trust that the world was a place where good things could happen. By 2018, Emma was living with her mother again, attending a small private school, seeing therapists twice a week. She still had nightmares. She still struggled with the concept that time had actually passed, that she was 12 years old, not 6. Sarah had quit her job as a pediatrician, unable to work with children anymore. She devoted her life to Emma's recovery, to advocacy for missing children, to pushing for stronger laws against child predators. Michael remained involved, but at a distance. He and Sarah could not rebuild what had been destroyed. Their brief reunion when Emma was found couldn't overcome 6 years of separate grief and blame. Daniel, now 18, struggled with his own recovery. He had spent 6 years believing he had failed to protect his sister, that her disappearance was his fault. Even though Emma had been found, even though everyone told him it wasn't his fault, the guilt remained. He went to therapy, but it couldn't undo 6 years of trauma. He had lost his childhood too, in a different way. Wonderland Amusement Park had been demolished in 2014. The land was sold to a developer who built a shopping center, the Carousel, the beautiful hand-carved carousel that had been the last place Emma was seen, was sold to a collector and shipped to a museum in California. And Emma asked about it once, in therapy. "Can we go see the pink horse?" she asked. I think I remember wanting to ride it." Her therapist said they could someday, when Emma was ready. But Emma never asked again. Some memories are too painful to chase. Epilogue. What lingers? In 2020, 10 years after her abduction, Emma Chen was 16 years old. She had learned to function in the world, though it never stopped feeling alien and frightening. She attended online school, had a few carefully maintained friendships, wrote in journals her therapist encouraged her to keep. In one entry, she wrote, "People ask if I remember what it was like before. I don't really. I remember feelings more than facts. I remember being excited about something, but I don't remember what. I remember my brother's face, but I don't remember loving him. I just know I did because people told me so. Sometimes I wonder who I would have been if it hadn't happened. Would I have liked school? Would I have had lots of friends? Would I have been brave or shy or funny or smart? I'll never know." The 6-year-old who went to the park that day didn't come back. I'm someone else. Someone built by a monster who thought he was saving children. Mom says I'm still Emma, but I don't feel like Emma. I feel like someone playing Emma's role in a story I don't remember. Maybe that's okay. Maybe I don't have to be the old Emma. Maybe I can just be this Emma and that's enough. But I really wish I could remember what it felt like to be excited about riding a carousel. Sarah Chen kept Emma's 6th birthday photo on her mantelpiece, the one with frosting on her nose, she holding birthday bear, beaming with joy. Next to it was a recent photo of Emma at 16, somber, guarded, but alive. 2 pictures of the same person who was not the same person anymore. The case of Emma Chen became a landmark in discussions about child abduction, long-term captivity, and psychological recovery. It led to changes in how amusement parks handle security, how missing children cases are investigated, how survivors of prolonged trauma are treated. Emma herself rarely spoke publicly about what happened. She gave one interview on her 18th birthday, sitting beside her mother, looking small and uncertain despite being nearly an adult. The interviewer asked what she wanted people to know. Emma thought for a long time before answering. "I want people to know that the people who are supposed to protect children sometimes fail. And I want people to know that even when you're found, you're not always saved. But I also want people to know that it's possible to build a life out of what's left. It won't be the life you should have had, but it can be something. She paused, then added quietly, and I want people to watch their kids. Really watch them. Don't look away, because it only takes a second for everything to change. Derek Samuels died in prison in 2022, killed by another inmate who had learned what he was incarcerated for. His death was noted in a brief news article. Emma didn't comment on it. Patricia Henley remains in federal prison. She sends letters to Emma periodically, trying to apologize, trying to explain. Emma doesn't read them. Her mother burns them unopened. The shopping center that now stands where Wonderland used to be has a memorial plaque near the entrance. In memory of all children lost, may they find their way home. People walk past it every day without noticing, but Emma knows it's there. She visited once, stood in the parking lot that used to be midway, tried to feel something about the place where her childhood ended. She felt nothing, just asphalt and cars and strangers shopping. The carousel is in California, in a museum, still beautiful, still turning, still playing calliope music. The white horse with the pink saddle is still there, frozen in its eternal gallop, waiting for a rider who will never come. Because the little girl who loved that horse is gone. She was stolen not just by a predator, but by time, by trauma, by the terrible machinery of what one person can do to another when given the chance. Emma Chen survived, but she did not escape unchanged. And in the end, that is its own kind of tragedy. The story of Emma Chen reminds us that abduction doesn't just steal a child's present, it steals their future. The person they would have become is erased, replaced by someone built from trauma and survival. Emma is alive. She is safe now. She is building a life. But somewhere in an alternate timeline that will never exist, there's a 6-year-old girl eating birthday cake and laughing and looking forward to riding a carousel, blissfully unaware that in her future, there is a moment, just one moment, where everything will change forever. That girl is gone. She exists only in photographs and memories that fade a little more each year. What remains is a 16-year-old who is doing her best to live a life she never chose, in a world that will always feel foreign, carrying memories that aren't entirely hers anymore. If you have children, watch them. Not with paranoia, but with presence. Be there. Pay attention. Because predators don't look like monsters. They look like everyone else. They wear uniforms and smile and know exactly how to wait for the moment when you look away. Don't look away.